Hello, everybody. It's 8:21 a.m. Central Time on the 18th of November, 2022. It's Friday morning here in the United States. I hope you're doing well. I've got some breaking news for you. A very large earthquake has struck on the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia. Let me show you where that is. Over here where this big set of rings is. And it's anywhere between 6.7 and 6.9 currently from the USGS, and actually 6.8 to 6.9 USGS and EMSC, the European agency. Now let me just get a display capture here turned on, just so you can see what I see ever so slightly better. And it's a very large earthquake. It's the largest in months for the whole area here, going from Java, central Indonesia, all the way up to China. It is the biggest earthquake in many, many months. Now, really, what I need to do is open up a USGS plate boundary map to show you the area that was struck and how it all kind of fits together here. Here's a 6.9 earthquake on the edge of the Indo-Australian plate boundary that goes up and out into China. Now, a new earthquake has struck out here in China. It's a 4.7 to near 5.0 quake. We're going to get movement going all the way along this, all the way usually out towards Europe. But that's actually traced back to other activity that we've been watching spread over the past several days. And we can trace this like a stepping stone path of earthquakes. Here's 3 to 4 days worth of earthquakes right here, 4.0 and greater. So you can see a stepping stone path, for instance, of 5.0 and greater quakes, where it looks like somebody's placed out stones on an uneven garden path, but yet they're somewhat equally spaced out. Now, what we're looking at there is a bunch of fives going out across the bend of the plate boundary here, heading out across towards Papua New Guinea and down towards New Zealand. Now, right in the middle there, down below, a series of deep earthquakes, phenomenally large deep earthquakes, upper 6 to 7.0 deep earthquakes, came hammering in on the underside of the plate here first. They're marked in red. They're a few days back. First, these happened. Then a spread going out and around all sides of the Indo-Australian plate. Here's everything that struck since our deep quakes. So you see spreading out across over as far as Papua New Guinea. 5s, 5.1, 5.5 in the middle, and a 5.8 to 6 here right in the middle of all the 5s. Going out this way, same size, 5.5, 5.2, and heading out across the Pacific in the other directions, 5.5 and 5.2, going out across in two directions around South America. This is all in the last 2 to 3 days. So, 4 days ago, I issued a warning for this on the coast of Sumatra, Indonesia. I'll bring you over to my YouTube page, where I've posted a link to the video where I issued the warning 4 days ago. At about 16 minutes in, here I am talking, and we'll just take it back, and I put out 2 postulates on Indonesia. 1, to watch at the S-shaped plate boundary. 2, to watch here. And I basically based it upon the deep earthquakes from 4 days ago. So let me show you the deep earthquakes from 4 days ago. We have one set here, raised high off the globe. One set here, raised high off the globe. And you don't see it over here far over into... Well, actually, hold on, you do. Okay, hold on. The USGS actually has it raised off the globe there. So I'm surprised. Okay, I thought they didn't have it. So on our other letter D right here, we have another deep earthquake. When I did my update 4 days ago, I talked about watching between this spot where the letter D is, all the way back over in between our other letter Ds. And this came out then to be the halfway point for the 7.0 range earthquake to strike. So now that it's hit, we can check it off the list. There's a flow heading out. Let's go back over to the USGS plate boundary map now and show you one more time. We're going out from the West Pacific, heading towards Asia at this point with a new 7. Now that all traces back to the big push that came up underneath here over at Tonga and Fiji. Also, additionally, we should see a spread heading out towards South America and Japan, about the same size. And that hasn't happened yet, but we're getting ready to see that happen on the coast of Japan, for instance, and on the travel out over to the west. So out to the west, you see a big cluster of earthquakes heading out towards Asia. These are all about the same size. I'm showing you everything 3.9 and greater reported from the Europeans and the USGS. And clearly, we're dealing with a boatload of 4.4s in the middle, quite literally, 4.4, 4.4, 4.4, another 4.3, and a 4.5. And that's in the middle, in between our other sets of quakes. So why am I telling you that? That's what's currently moving today. This is a push that's coming out of the West Pacific today. And let's go back to the USGS map. This is going to flow up into Asia and out over to the west, ultimately towards Europe. And not this earthquake. The seismic flow is going to be heading over to the west, out towards Europe. And the force that causes the earthquakes is a very low frequency wave of some kind. Could be ultra low frequency, extremely low frequency. But the spacing on these quakes, let's get back to this and I'll explain it very simply. The stepping stone path that I talked about, like a garden path placed out equally across a huge distance, think of each one of these quakes as the peak of a wave, and that we're going up and down, up and down, up and down across the plate boundary as the wave is traveling up, out, and away from where it originated, and some kind of very low frequency is being generated down below the plate, which is showing up with the earthquakes down below the plate. So it's not one earthquake causing the other. It's that all four of these earthquakes, for instance here, in the course of a day, are caused by a spreading wave that's spreading out at least 4,000 miles in all directions from the center of where the push is taking place. Now we've reached out all the way to the middle western portion of the Indo-Australian, and they're heading out over to the west even further over the next few days. This wave is going to follow this up into Asia and out over towards Europe and out towards the T intersection at the mid-Atlantic ridge, the opposite side of the planet, the antipode. So getting back to it, an extremely large earthquake has struck, the largest in months for western Indonesia, and I think maybe even all of Indonesia. We might be able to go back, I think, 2 or 3 months to get that 7.0 earthquake right here at Papua New Guinea. Still, we're in Indonesia now, and it's the largest in months for the whole country. Now, the spread is going to go out towards Europe. Like I said, I have warnings going and current forecast going. I'm not going to be issuing any new forecast, but I will recap on the areas we're watching. One more time, we're watching following these red lines, the arrows. Then we look between our current sets of earthquakes for new outbreaks to take place. And when you get big clusters like this, you look between the whole mess of earthquakes to find the middle point between the huge cluster that's moving, and that's the spot to break with the next big earthquake. So we're looking downstream from Indonesia. Think of this like a flowing river, and it's going to be pulling up over on the edge of the plate boundary, over here next to Afghanistan, then head out to Europe. And it's going to go up and around through China. It's going to try to make a hard bend. The wave is going to be directed like a wave guide in a microwave, guiding your microwave to your food, that it's going to go around the bend of the plate. This very low frequency wave will go around the bend of the plate and head out towards Iran and so forth towards Europe. Now, we should see a new earthquake pop off right where all those overlapping rings are, and this puts us in western China going into North India, Kashmir region. It's pretty obvious, right? You can see all the rings overlap there. As we head out further to the west, we're also going to have to now issue a warning for Iran going up into the Caspian Sea. Here's the Caspian Sea, here's Iran. Down south we have Saudi Arabia. Last night, 5.2 struck, felt all the way across down to Dubai. And then over here to the west, where the rings overlap, you see it, looks like a giant oval shape here. We watch on the south side right here at the plate boundary. The size magnitude is going to be depending on what comes over towards Afghanistan. I'm going to put it more like in the mid-range 6 level. If this is 6.9 coming out of the West Pacific, the wave is not going to lose that much energy. Heading out from here, going up and around the bend, over to here, should drop by maybe a half magnitude at the most. So it's not one earthquake causing the other. You've got to get your head around this if you're a professional listening or anybody. It's not like dominoes. It's that these earthquakes are all being caused by another force. The force that causes the earthquakes. Look at the spacing on this. Look at this 4.4 to 4.4. This 4.5 to 4.4. First of all, they're all about the same size, right? Within a hair of a point of each other. But notice the spacing in the stepstone path on that. Now let's compare that to this. What I just showed you. It's the same thing, but it's bigger. It's spread out just a little bit more. And we're dealing with 5s instead of 4s. But nonetheless, we're getting that same spread, like waves in a tank. but the tank is not even. It's not a perfect square or a rectangle like in the laboratory where you're doing wave tank experiments where you're pumping up standing waves. It's a standing wave spreading out something across something uneven. And that's what it is, the force that causes the earthquakes. Back to it. Big earthquake struck in Indonesia. Probably not going to be talking about too much else in this update other than the big earthquake in Indonesia. At this point, it would probably be a good idea to see if there are any localized tsunami warnings. There probably aren't. I'm not saying there's going to be. But let's just go look at the Tsunami Warning Center, see if they even have the quake on there. Yeah, there's nothing at the Tsunami Warning Center. Good news. They don't even have the quake on there. Check it out. They don't even have the quake. Let's go look at the buoys. See what the buoys are showing, if we even have any active that are over in Indonesia at all. They're all off. Look, the whole Indian Ocean is off. Look at that. Are you kidding me? What's going on there? I don't know how long it's been off, but it's off. All right, well, we wouldn't find out if there is a tsunami because the whole array is off. There is one functional station out at the south central Indian Ocean, with the rest showing red. Literally, stations no data within the last 8 hours. 24 hours for tsunami stations, nothing. Dude, that is just whatever. Okay, so we'll never know. They'll tell us when they find out. Over in Indonesia, I mean. The people in Indonesia will tell us when they find out. Back to it. Big earthquake striking, but we're seeing a spread go out across the Pacific in all directions. I've got a warning going for pretty noteworthy sized earthquake activity to strike over on the east coast of the United States. Now, if you're not aware, an extremely large earthquake, the largest, I think, in 100 years for the state of Texas, or close to 100 years. 1930 was a 6.0 range quake. But anyway, 5.4, we do not normally see this kind of activity in Texas, and it's directly next to a pumping operation. Now, I just got word on something that breaking news last night. I'm not trying to get political on you guys or anything. This has to do with USA politics, so I know a lot of my viewers are international viewers. You might not care about this stuff, but you're going to probably care about this if you care about earthquakes. Because apparently, yesterday, the U.S. House of Representatives opened up an investigation into some kind of graft or payoff or some kind of underhanded dealings that are being done with the Chinese government being offered oil and gas contracts from a certain person who's president and their family. And this is not my take on it, guys. This is like literally, this is just all breaking news last night. Everyone's freaking on it, including people on the opposite side of whatever aisle you might be on. Everybody's talking about it. That apparently the Chinese government was given access or deals to do gas exploration and fracking in certain areas in the United States, and this is one of them. I couldn't believe it when I saw the map they put up last night. I just couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God. So here's the deal. The possibility now exists. I'm not saying this is true, but the possibility exists that there's Chinese companies that are over here doing gas exploration and extraction. And they might not be following the rules like you might want to prevent earthquake activity. And that if a Chinese firm is out here doing gas exploration or extraction and it causes a 5.4 earthquake, and that damages all the other infrastructure for all the other domestic oil companies that are around here, causing billions of dollars in damage, I just start to wonder when we get earthquakes deleted like what happened with this quake. Such weird things happened that it went off the feed and came back on. It got deleted and put back on. So odd what's going on there. But when I see earthquakes matching up with that map that the Congress showed, or whatever, the House of Representatives showed, I couldn't believe it. And guess what? It also includes Michigan, where the earthquake happened up here in Michigan. That's on the map for the Chinese exploration. So we're getting rare earthquakes that are big in spots where these people are given gas. Do you think they would respect us and try and prevent earthquake activity? They know that there's induced earthquake activity. So let's talk about this for a second. A 5.4 earthquake hit down in Texas. What do we watch for? Well, there's that wave that I'm talking about here that came out of Canada at the pumping operations in Canada, and it went down across the edge of the craton, following the craton edge, right down to Texas. And I warned up to the northeast already, which just hit a day ago. We warned Vermont-New Hampshire border at Quebec for 3.0 level activity, and a new 3 hit on the edge of the craton. So now we find our halfway points between our earthquakes down here and our earthquakes up here, and that's where the wave's going to travel to next and break off a similar sized quake. So we have a potential to go up to 5.0 on the east coast, in between down here where our quakes are and up here where our quakes are. And we have to follow the bend of the plate. We find the halfway point between those two spots, and that's the most likely spot to get hit. And if you zoom in on the halfway point, that brings us in right here. So it matters, again, it matters if we're moving on the edge of the craton, and look what just hit in the last few hours. A new earthquake, more rare, down in central Georgia. Let's go get the stats on this. West Point, Georgia. Now, I don't know if that's West Point as in West Point, like the academy. I don't think so. I sure hope not. But we're going to put the coordinates in and go look it up. So we're moving over in Georgia now, moving towards the East Coast. This is fulfilling the forecast as we're moving across, heading out. I already looked this earthquake up earlier, and I already know it's not at quote-unquote West Point. But here we are, and we're right at a set of high-voltage power lines. Now, this ties in with one of my big discoveries over the past few years, that earthquakes are striking next to power stations, power lines, and so forth. This just happened over in Europe, down below. Look at this, just a couple days ago. Down below Belgian nuclear power plant, an earthquake struck right here, and the nuclear power plant is right here blurred out, but the earthquake struck below the Belgian nuclear power plant. And then I list down below where it happened before a few times. One of them is in Virginia, where the 5.9 earthquake struck at Mineral, Virginia, right next to the nuclear power plant in Mineral, Virginia. So it turns out, and I've been documenting this for a few years, hundreds or more earthquakes per year in the United States strike along and below our power lines and power stations. And it's not just nuclear. It's also coal-fired power plants. It's also solar. And it's also hydroelectric and wind farms. So we get these earthquakes following because guess what's in the electrical lines? Very low frequency. Simply put, alternating current, very low frequency. And alternating current is radio waves. So we have very low frequency radio waves, electricity, going through the electrical lines and being generated, and then down below those spots we're getting earthquakes, which are also very low frequency and electrical in nature, but going through the plate. So back to it one more time. Extremely large earthquake striking in the West Pacific. A spread of earthquakes, very low frequency, looking like a wave where the peaks are coming up, where all the earthquakes are, heading out towards Asia and Europe. It's going to be dropping off new earthquakes over at Afghanistan and heading out towards Iran. As the week progresses, going into this coming week, maybe not even that far away, once we get over to Europe, Europe should be hit. Down here in South Europe again, we're dealing with the potential of 6.0 level activity, this time coming into Greece, this time coming most likely on land. I'm going to shift my warned area from my forecast from 4 days ago slightly to the west, which is going to put us on land in Greece. And then we also have to shift our area in Italy slightly to the west-northwest. So that's going to take us back up into central Italy again. Instead of South Italy at Campobasso, I have to move this all just ever so slightly from my forecast 4 days ago, based upon what's happening. So we're just coming in ever so slightly to the west from where I warned. Magnitude stand, so we're dealing with 5s across the board and a 6 back down here, down in Greece on land. So 6, Greece and land, 5, central Italy, coming in the next few days. I'm going to check off and cancel the warning in North UK. This is a full miss for me. This one's a big miss for me. I was looking for Scotland to get hit with an earthquake off the west coast of Scotland, and it has not hit. Instead, our flow went right out to the North Mid-Atlantic Ridge on both sides, and now the North Pole is moving. I mentioned the North Pole in my last update, if you guys want to go talk about it, or go look at it, look at me talk about it. And now we're starting to break out. Svalbard north, heading north of Svalbard. We started south of Svalbard, now we're moving north. Here's the physical North Pole, right where this right here. This is the physical North Pole. Magnetic North Pole, I believe, is somewhere heading towards Siberia at this point. Anyway, we went around UK and went up to the north. That's what looks like what happened. But, as soon as I say that, knock on wood, right? As soon as I say it, it's like, boom, there it is. But the warning time came and went. 7 days has now passed as of last night. It's proof I don't hit them all. The flow went around, though. We have a justification for how I missed. It went around Europe, went right out to the North Sea, and struck up a path of least resistance. Thought it was going to break here. Instead, it preferred to the north. Just like a storm. So you're watching for a storm to come in at one spot, and it makes one more turn and prefers to the north. And then the trajectory on that puts it completely off from where you're looking. So if it's coming out of here, which it was, we saw all the activity come right out here, and then it went boom, preferred straight to the north, trying to seek a path of least resistance out. Now, we should get the earthquake that I was expecting down here at the UK. The 5 should break up here at the North Pole. Since it missed on there, it's going to... the energy didn't disappear. It just missed on trajectory on my estimation of where it was going to go 7 days ago. 7 days ago, I thought it was going to go to North Scotland. Instead, it went north of Scotland up here. Do you follow me on that? Man. And I know it doesn't even matter. It's out in the middle of nowhere. It's out literally in the middle of the ocean for a 5.0 quake. Nobody's going to feel it. Nobody cares if I get it or not. Well, everybody cares if I miss it. I can't. No respect. I sound like Rodney Dangerfield. Anyway, back to the start of this, guys. 6.9 earthquake striking here. It's nothing to scoff at. It's the biggest earthquake in months for Indonesia. We have warnings going around the rest of the planet. We're going through a time of what I would consider to be seismic overdrive. It's all based on the deep earthquakes that are raised high off the globe here. Look at it, 7 days worth of quakes. Let's get all the smallers out of there and just look at 4.0 or 4. Yeah, here's 4.0 and greater. 7 days. So right now we're at 2,100 earthquakes for the week reported from, I guess, the Europeans and the USGS combined. We've seen this go up as high as 5,000, and it shuts down the earthquake 3D feed here, which maxes out at 5,000 earthquakes for a week, apparently. So we've had times where there's been double or more of what seismic activity we're currently seeing here on the screen. But big, deep earthquake-wise, this only happens a few times every few years where we get a bunch of big, deep earthquakes like this. Deep 6s and deep 7s and deep 5s, and they're all, it looks like a pincushion. Look at that. Look at all the deep quakes in 7 days' time. There's been a displacement from down below the plates. Displacement from down below the Indo-Australian plate. Guess what happens to the other plates all the way around it when it displaces? They adjust all the way across, all the way around, going all the way out towards Europe, equilibrium, opposite side of the planet. And then if it's a big enough push, actually comes back around and goes through again. Goes through the planet, comes back through with new deep earthquakes, and carries on the, almost like a relay runner effect. But you should be able to, even the person who doesn't normally even look at this, be able to trace out the earthquakes going around the outside edge of the plate boundary here on Indo-Australian, and then spreading like cracks. Look at this, pointing in like an arrow. By the way, look at the shape of the earthquakes here over the course of 7 days, and they point in like an arrow. Now, this is the reason I have arrows here, for instance. I noticed this 10 years ago or 11 years ago. I was making videos. I didn't have the arrows. These arrows I've put on the map because that's the way the earthquakes flow over the course of a week. Observation, right? But when I started, the arrows weren't on here, of course. And I noticed I'd be making a series of videos about earthquakes here, for instance. And then the next day I'd be on and I'd be talking about here. And then the next day I'd be on and I'd be talking about it here. And it wasn't intentional. It was literally I was just reporting on the quakes and making videos. It was such a pain in the butt to make a video. You have to process it and edit it. Anyway, I noticed a progression. And then I noticed when I'd back it out, I wasn't looking for a long time. I wasn't looking for 2 or 3 days. I was using the USGS feed for the most part, looking for a day. But then I would look for a couple days and I'd be like, wait, hold on, that looks like an arrow. Looks like that's the way it's flowing. It's coming together like a giant letter Y, and then the combined total of all these 4s goes out and strikes with a 5 out in front of it. See it? All those 4s adds up to a 5. It takes 10 4s to equal 1 5. We got a 5.2 out in front of it, and there's more than 10 4s there. So it's pointing like an arrow to it. I noticed stuff like that. Same for in the United States, but it's smaller earthquakes. See where our arrows are here in the United States? I noticed that earthquakes were flowing across those And it was like the same thing. It was like an arrow. Here, let me turn down the ring so you can see it. Pointing in like an arrow from the northwest and coming out of California, going right across Nevada and reaching out to the edge of the Craton, where then the flow of earthquakes goes down through Texas and back up the East Coast. No, see it now? Anyway, these arrows weren't on the map when I first started. Okay, again, it was just like, whoa, it looks like there's a flow of earthquakes. While I was doing the research, professionals came along and literally tried to have it shut down, denying everything. Anyway, that's all history now. It's all proved. You can see it here before your eyes, and you can rely on it to happen regularly. It's like the weather. You can expect it to flow in a certain direction 9 out of 10 times. And the only time the weather goes out of the ordinary is when a big displacing system is taking it out of the ordinary. That there's some anomaly happening that's putting it out of the ordinary flow. Otherwise, there's a normal flow of the weather, there's a normal flow of tides, there's a normal flow of astronomical things, and so forth. Do you have an earthquake plan? I say this in every update, but with the earthquakes hitting like they are, and with the slight unrest we're going through now, this is earthquake go time. So you need to have a plan and be prepared just in case. Hopefully you guys all know what to do if an earthquake strikes. Now, finally, before I go, let me just ask you a question. How did today's update sound on the microphone? Did it sound okay? Did we have any glitch issues or microphone problems while I was doing the update? I've had a lot of people contact me and tell me that they couldn't hear my voice, or that it would just cut out or whatever while I was doing updates, and I'm getting a lot of people telling me that when they're watching. And so I have to ask, because I'm uploading these and it should be fine. The audio should be great. Okay, great. Everybody in chat here on Twitch Live is telling me great. If you're watching on YouTube, you can tell me too. How does it sound on YouTube? So if it is cutting out, and we're getting lots of reports on that, that would be done at some other end. That would be at your end, app end, or on the end of Twitch. Or if it's happening on YouTube, it's not me. My recording sounds great. It should sound nice and clear and be nice volume and everything. Okay, let's record this now. Hit record and put it over on YouTube for a premiere back. Everybody needs to see an example of earthquake forecast hitting again. Since everybody said it was impossible, they need to see that not only is it possible, you can get it down to a magnitude, down to a region, down to a 7-day time period, down to usually a 200-mile area. One thing I'd like to say, and I wasn't going to mention this. My wife told me not to. I probably should listen to her, but I'm just going to mention it. I was reluctant to get on and do this update on this earthquake in particular in Indonesia. Not because of anything that was said to me recently, but every time I issue a warning for Indonesia for a significant sized earthquake, when it hits, the professionals there and the media there issue smear articles attacking me. It's happened 5 or 6 times now. International media in Indonesia mentioning me by name, ripping on me, going off on me after I issue a warning and the earthquake hits. And when it's a big quake, like a 6 or 7 or an 8. So I issue a warning for it. Earthquake hits within the time frame in the area where I issued the warning. Every single time they've came after me. Hardcore. I don't know why. If you live in Indonesia, guys, you want to explain this to me? I issue a warning, the earthquake hits, and they come after me. They don't come after me when it misses. I've had misses in Indonesia before, too, where the earthquake goes around Indonesia and strikes over to the west or something, or up to the north, up in Philippines. And they don't come after me then. They only do it when I get it right. It's like punish me for issuing a warning kind of thing. So I was really worried about, I even said to my wife, I said, I don't know, man, I could probably just get away with making a text post over on my community page or something. Go back to Twitter and pay to promote my thing or something, all right? Anyway, I'm just doing it because, again, there's going to be somebody there in Indonesia or somewhere else that learns the forecast method. I've already published how to forecast step-by-step methods So there's no secret. I'm not trying to keep this a secret or gatekeep the information or make a buck on it. You guys can repeat the method and start doing your own earthquake forecasting. Anyway, let's save it as a video. Please send it to the people in Indonesia. Let them know I warned them 4 days ago. And now it's hit now, 4 days later. Okay? Peace out.